So let's start by talking about Brisbane and your experience creating the work for the 1999 Third Asia Pacific Triennial, which I can see a detail of on the screen behind us at the moment.
Oh, wow.
Including a
Alfredo
very
still has
young
the...
Alfredo.
Now it's colored.
So tell me about the work and...
yesterday we were having a little conversation with Chris, and I said jokingly that, thank you for, finding reasons for us to come back here in Brisbane now. But I think, I think Brisbane is always, becomes a home for us since we moved here in 2006. And I think not only 2006, but we had an exhibition here. Karen Turner is here, They invited us in the 1999 Asia Pacific Triennial. And this actually introduced us, not only in Brisbane, but introduced us what, Australia is. And not knowing that we'll be here, and living here for the past, we've been living here for the past 18 years. So I guess there's some kind of a connection that we've, in a way, created, but not at the same time, it's also like being forged along the way when we move here. So I guess from the 1999 Asia Pacific Triennial we're in, our project is actually borrowing objects that the Filipino migrants brought along with them when they moved here,
When they chose to move here.
When they chose to move here and have it in an exhibition for the APT 3, I think, in a way that stayed in our mind that, that someday probably will be the same thing also. So I think that probably is a reference point or a takeoff point of the project belonging.
But also it's, I think, at that time, it was very, the decision to be part of that exhibition was also connected to how would you like to stay connected with family? Because Alfredo also, did you discover or learn that one of his, a family of his, moved here in the 1960s, right?
The 1960s. He's actually one of the early Filipino migrants who moved here in Queensland because he's a scientist. He designed
papaya, fruits.
Yeah, he designed fruits.
And
he's one of the early migrants who came here during the late 1960s, and he was the one who actually, if you actually see a big mango,
yes,
probably he's the one who designed that. Yeah. But of course, he's working with the government, so it's not actually patented or into. But yeah, that I think in a way. There's always this connection with Australia, having an uncle here.
And he helped you, didn't he, as well, when you were putting together the work for APT3? He helped gather many of the objects that you included from the Filipino community.
So my cousin who moved here with the whole family, he was only 1 year old. So we thought of collaborating with him and asking him to collect objects of things that the Filipinos brought along with them. With that idea for my cousin to start actually learning where he's coming from, where he belongs. Okay. No, and I assume that through that process he started connecting with his Filipino heritage as well. So in a way, the installation that we've created for the APT3, of course, we see objects, through that exhibitions, but it's all about that memory that that brings back, through the objects. And I think that becomes a trajectory, or that becomes the footing of our practice.
I can definitely see it as a precursor of an address in a very important way, I think, and not only with the title from Project Belonging, but there's the trajectory there from APT3 through to this work that we're looking at again tonight.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then in 2006, we got invited by Charles Merriweather for the 2006 Sydney Biennial. And at the time, we never thought of actually moving here, but Isabel and I, being an artist, we just always jump into something else without even thinking, why don't we do it as a project, and it becomes a project it becomes a project for the Sydney Biennial, and it also becomes the move that we made together with our five children. So we pack our things, our house, and move here with 12 boxes, or the balikbayan boxes of the things that we brought along with us.
And that's what you showed in the zones of contact, didn't you? Yes. In the Sydney Biennale, the 12 balikbayan boxes.
It's in the exhibition, which is entitled Zones of Contact. And we thought of this I think fits well with the exhibition. So we pack our things in the 12 boxes and just remove the box and what's inside, and that's the work in itself.
It's very clever because it looks like a minimalist cube, but the contents are so different. There's so much significance in them. That's always struck me with that work.
It's a wrenching process, choosing what to bring along and what to leave behind. And we thought that this is what migrants always feel when they move somewhere else. And I think having that work for this exhibition, I guess, it brings back memories of everyone, because we think that everyone is a migrant. We think that everyone can relate to this work, and I guess for us, it's something that also. Well, I remember giving a box to one of our kids, and just choose what you can put inside the box, and and thinking now, how does that feel? Can I just bring a book or a cloth or a piece of a toy? And I think that's what the work is all about. And this, I think, are the invisibles, the narratives that comes with it. And
Alfredo, you said to me once that you had a lot of trouble when you first arrived in finding a house for yourselves.
We were
as
homeless
well.
for a while.
Yeah.
And it was through a friend at some point that to have 5 kids with you and trying to find where are we going to have a home. So those things leads you to, reflecting on the decisions that you make in life. But always have to make it work and make do for whatever you have. And Dadang Crisanto was one of I was very lucky that he was going to Indonesia that time and said offer his home for us when we are at that point we don't have a home. And so we looked after his place, and then one thing happened and another thing led us to, my first job in Australia, in Brisbane, was very lucky, was in the Children's Art Centre. So this is really like a special place in our heart, not just for me. And our children and our whole family see that. It was our refuge, really. So when we are here, our access is only just the gallery. The gallery is like for you, you see all the beautiful things in here. And, the struggles would be gone because you see beautiful things around you.
Yeah, but I think it's
Inspiring
not
things.
just that, but also like people that
Yes.
you were with before. Dadang Cristanto, we were together at the APT 3, and he moved here also
Yeah.
at that time after the APT, and I think, having, it gives you more confidence, I suppose, that someone, is there to us to well,
share
it's
the
just
brother,
there,
yes.
Yeah.
And when we move here, we have friends and families, so and also acquaintances start giving us things that they thought that as Chris mentioned a while ago, think that they thought that what we need to start a new life, and we end up with all these objects, and then came up with this work because.
It was very, I think everything was like the cosmos is like flowing, and there's so much beautiful things happening to you that Adelaide Perennial, we had an invitation with Felicity Fenner saying that, I would like to invite you to come up with a work, and the title of this exhibition is Handle with Care. And it's so like, oh my God. So, it's just everything. Well, our life, we're just so intuitive, we're very organic. So the flow is one project, flows to the next. And this is how we just do what we do.
And I think the fact that you chose a house as well was also very significant as the form, that you would make.
Well, as a new migrant, basically what you need is a new house. So we thought of why don't we just create something, that in a way reflect what we need, but we also deliberately thought of why don't we, it's a roofless house, it's a house with a space within, but it's also a roofless house. So it talks about layers of things, it talks about basically, what being a migrant is, and universally we can still talk about that, what's happening all over now. In fact, one of the exhibition that that this work has been exhibited is in Taiwan, that talks about the idea of being homeless. The title of the exhibition is Homeless Home. And interestingly, after the exhibition in Adelaide, it's been traveling for one exhibition to another, having the curators, look at it in a different context.
Yeah.
Like, for example, at one time it was exhibited in Israel.
Yes.
Or, in a museum, which is the Museums on the Seams.
Right.
That also talks about the idea of homelessness.
Yeah, because there's a real difference, isn't there, between what's a house and what's a home?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you address very much through your practice overall. Can you tell us a little bit about what you included, and also about the balikbayan boxes and what they mean to Filipino migrants?
In every, the balikbayan box, as how Chris has talked about a while back, it's called the home returnees box, that in every Filipino household, you will always find this 50 by 50 mil, right?
Yeah.
Measurement of the box, that if you will fill up, it will fill up completely a 20-foot container. And with every Filipino family or an overseas Filipino workers would leave, they would have this box in the corner of their house or room, and they'll fill it up with whatever, from tissues to chocolates to whatever that they can send back home. But this is to tell their family that even if I'm far away, we are thinking of you. But sadly, it's also a signal that we cannot come home. So really for us, it's a very significant object, aside that for when we left, this is also the same box that we used when we moved to Australia.
We have, like, we're a country of overseas workers. We have
Of
about
overseas Filipino workers.
more than 10 million Filipino workers working all over the world. But it's also like a very important thing, like the remittance that they send, it actually
Helps the economy.
helps the economy of the Philippines. And I think the Balikbayan box talks about more than the objects that's within. It talks about a whole, the idea of, the issues that connects with it, like political issues and economic issues and so on and so forth. Like, we're forced to go overseas and work.
Yeah,
Which is
leave your
probably
families behind.
Yeah, and being
yeah.
separated from our family, and we thought that this is very significant in a way, and us now being migrants ourselves, it becomes also something that we thought of start working on to, in a way, talk about the idea of migrations and dislocations, and also being away from home, or just being the idea of what home is all about.
And I know that as well as the objects, the multiple toasters and Mac computers and so on that you were given by the community, that there are also a number of personal and significant items. For example, your children's school books that are in there, and some of their toys. So it has that really personal aspect. Can you tell us a little bit
The
about
last exhibition.
how your children feel when they see it?
The last exhibition was in Jeju
Island.
Jeju Island in South Korea, and we brought two of our children with us to help us install the work. And they started looking into like those things and said, "Oh, this is where
that's where you put it." It was like, we've never seen this work before.
Yeah, and then when it was installed, one of our children again came back and but I think the work is not all about the objects, It's all about those memories that comes with it, I still see, for example, one of our, very important artists who lives here has been teaching. I used to be connected with the Queensland, the QCA, the Queensland Arts College, and Deborah Pors. He said, "Oh, you need a computer."
Yeah.
And
I'm giving you my Mac. And it's this chunky blue Mac. It's there. And so we're like, it's a time capsule.
I think I can see it right now. In that image.
And Deborah Pors passed away a few years back, and and that memory of that moment when he thought like you need the computer. I think that's what the work is all about.
It's the generosity, I think, of when that's the human side of things. It's very touching to see that if there's a response for everyone, if they feel that help is there, like everyone would, that human side. It's wonderful to see and feel that you're not alone. Yeah.
And I know we touched on this already, but how do you feel having this work come back here to QAGOMA and to Brisbane?
Well, since it left like in 2007 for the Adelaide Biennial, it went to Singapore Biennial, it went to Japan for the Dojima Biennial. So many exhibitions, not just exhibition, but important exhibitions. I think these are seminal exhibitions, I think. And not just exhibition, but also exhibitions that talks about very specific issues that relates to the idea of what home is and what being it's all about that humanity that comes with it, and I think that's what in the end it's not all about, as I've said a while ago, it's not all about the objects on view, but the memories and the narratives that accumulates, that comes with it. And interestingly also, like when we had it first exhibited at the Singapore Biennial, you know, we see objects that are not familiar.
Because people add.
That people actually start adding, and people actually
A photo.
yeah, and for us, I think it's that kind of
response.
work, I think, that makes the work.
So it keeps growing and adding
yeah.
different narratives and layers to it everywhere it goes. And yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of stories with that. Like, I don't know, Hans Haki, we were together in
Linz.
For the every
Quebec
year they
Biennale?
choose a city as the European capital culture. And at the time, the work was chosen to be part of that exhibition. And,
In Linz, Austria.
in Linz, Austria. But at the same time also, at the time it was also some, it was the anniversary of, because we all know that Linz is, how to say, the capital culture, and that's what Adolf Hitler envisioned, that Linz will become the capital culture of Europe at the time. So that's where all the, and there's this, like,
He has a
part
plan.
of the exhibition, there's a plan, the plan of the city of Linz, that you know, this will become the capital culture of. And it's interestingly, it's now at the time the capital culture, wherein we have the Ars Electronica and so on. And
So how did it feel having address showing there? What did you feel when you saw it on display?
Well, that brought really a different take on that, how people responded to that work in where it was. And most specifically that Hans Hake, he is, he's German. And for him to see that work, it speaks to him in a different, of course, from his experience and where it's coming from. So the work in itself talks beyond what it is from our story to another person's narrative. And I think in our work and in these objects or whatever the form is, that shares and extends to everyone, and it's an invitation for everyone to connect, and maybe a possibility for you to share your story as well. So when he was there, he was really keen on, telling us, Alfredo, Isabel, I'm going to take a photo of this work with you all the time. So he became our official photographer and we, of course, knowing Hans Hake, he was like, wow. We were installing the work, and he was there, But
what I'm driving at is actually the work, and every time it moves from one location to another, it takes on the narrative of the space where, or not just the space, but the site where it's being exhibited in a way, depending on how the people engage and how it will engage the space and the site of where the work is being exhibited. So I think for us that's also very important, more especially in our practice. But it's all about engagement. Like in this case, the work is all about engagement with originally Brisbane and how we engage with the everyone around us and create this work. But as it moves to another place, as it moves to another exhibition, having different in different contexts, I suppose, the work the narrative and the work and the stories of the expanse and multiplies.
And it's going to be, well, I think for me, the most exciting part is that when it comes back here, the people who have given their stuff and they're going to see it in there. It's just like, I think it's a time capsule, and they would never realize, because some people for sure would like to give some, and I've seen like objects in there, like someone gave us their tax thing and files of whatever, and it's in there, and in different, because it's a cube. So every time we install it, we can show the different sides of every part of the cube, and it can change really at some point. So it's a time capsule. So almost everything there is almost 20 years old.
In a way, it's actually a self-portrait of what Brisbane is.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And of yourselves and your family as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the packing part is us.
And I know in your practice, and more broadly, that you've used different materials, and in this one you've used the personal belongings, and I think this one is also part of. Is it true that it's the end of the series called Project Belonging? Is it the last work in that series, or is that an ongoing?
Yeah,
in a way, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
Because when we moved to Australia,
it will trigger something else again, please, when we move here. But yeah, when we move here, the project belonging actually, becomes it's called. We have another project which is called the Project Another Country. That actually became like the footing of the practice that we've been creating here when we move here in Australia. But when we talk about another country is not actually, is actually that space in between. Because when you leave home, you don't have a place you call home anymore. You'll always be in that middle ground, in which we called another country. And now that we move back also in the to the Philippines, in a way we're creating a new trajectory of our practice, in which I think the practice
it still is community based.
Yeah, that in a way I think being molded here in Australia, specifically here in Brisbane. We started working with the flying arts early on, flying to remote areas, giving, and that becomes, I think, importantly, the community practice that we've been working on. And now we have, I think, Chris asked yesterday, what's the biggest project that you're working on? But it's not all about an artwork, but it's all about community building. It's all about how the idea of how we can contribute to the community, more especially now that we're back in the Philippines, that we feel that there's a need for us to be there and do more. So we're actually building workshops now for artisans, helping them to sustain their practice, and at the same time, hopefully, the craft or the skill will be transferred to the next generation, because these are all dying industries. And I guess with all these works that we've been working on, most of our resources goes back to those communities that we are actually working on at the moment.
Can you tell me a little bit about the project that you're doing in near Davao in the southern Philippines? I'd love to hear a little bit more. Have we got much time left, Julie? I think we've only got a couple more minutes, but
yeah, we got locked down in the Philippines.
Make it short, Alfredo.
Yeah, okay. That's Isabel always telling me what to do.
I'm the boss.
Yeah, we got locked down in the Philippines during the pandemic, and one of the things that we've started is helping communities. And as I've mentioned a while ago, is these communities of artisans that we're actually assisting and helping and creating spaces for the community to come and learn and just share. I suppose,
and understand.
And I think sharing is, for us, that's the art form in itself. It's not the object that we create.
That's a beautiful thing to say.
But now we're also doing a bit of things, like now we're creating a nursery for corals and seagrass to regenerate a gulf in south of the Philippines. And in a way, I think for us, of course, we look at it as an artwork, having to create passageways or jetties and sculptures underwaters, but I think it's more than that. I suppose, and I think as an artist, we have this big responsibility to reflect what's going on around us, and I think for us, this is what art is all about, and this is our role as an artist. And we might have exhibitions or works like this, but it's all about what it reflects and how it affects our people around us and the next generations to come.
I think that's probably a really beautiful moment to end on, and just to say that so many of those things that you've just said are really apparent in address. And salamat, maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat. Thank you
for
so
talking
much.
with us and for allowing us to bring this work into our collection. It's wonderful.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.